Hey you guys, I've got a question to ask you. Have any of you ever had dreams of video games? Like, have you ever dreamt up an interesting sequel, or remake, or even just a brand new game entirely? Does the fact that this happens to me pretty often make me weird? I suppose maybe I should cut down on the amount of games I play or something. Anyway, I figured if I'm gonna dream in pixels, I might as well share those pixels with everyone else, whenever I find them interesting. And I'll also share the admittedly much more common ideas that I come up with while fully awake. No reason to limit myself just to dreams. This time, I imagined a game set in the world of Jurassic Park. Why? I'm not exactly sure. I haven't seen Jurassic World, and I haven't seen any of the other movies since I was really young. I haven't even played any of the already existing games for a long time. Regardless, this idea was one that I thought would be a great fit for the license. I'm dubbing this imaginary game Jurassic Island. Now, what is the idea behind a Jurassic Island? At its most basic, it's a procedurally generated open-world, asymmetrical co-op experience in the first person. It takes place on a single, large island, with a few surrounding smaller islands that all make up the park, and it stars 4 characters created by the players. In case anyone is unfamiliar with some of these terms, I'll break them down. A world that's procedurally generated is one where the environment is randomly crafted each time you start a new game. This random world generation can be as complex as reworking every single polygon or pixel it's made up of, or as simple as moving a few vital buildings around a completely static environment. It doesn't always have to be Minecraft or No Man's Sky level of procedural generation. As far as asymmetrical co-op is concerned, that's pretty simple. I know some of you might be asking how co-op can be asymmetrical, since generally that term is used for player versus player combat, not cooperative gameplay. Well, all I'm really trying to say is that the characters you can choose to play as have various unique abilities that, while drastically different from each other, balance their usefulness so that nobody is more vital to the team than anybody else. They're completely different while still being integral to a working unit. One could basically say that each character is their own class. Now, how would the procedural generation in this game work? I've gone back and forth with this question, but I think it'd be best if the island itself stays static throughout all playthroughs. What would change is the location of the buildings and structures on the island, as well as the layout of said structures. All buildings would use modular pieces that get semi-randomly assembled to create a unique exploration space inside. There will always be a certain minimum amount of buildings to explore, and there will be a few building types that will always show up. So for example, let's say that the park hospital is an important building. It will always be in the game, but it will be structured differently every time, and be placed in a different area on the map. The island itself will obviously be mostly jungle, but it will have varying terrain including cliffs, rivers, plains, small mountains, caves, waterfalls, etc. Every character starts with a map of the park, though it won't tell you everything. Items characters can find and use will also be randomly placed throughout the game, so that exploration is always incentivized. As I said earlier, the playable characters break themselves down into classes. There are a total of 4 classes, and you can only have one character from each class in your party per game. Each character excels at certain things and struggles with others to help foster a true team dynamic. You can completely customize the look of your characters, including physical appearance, clothing, gender, and race. This way, regardless of which class you end up playing, you feel like you're playing with your own character. So anyway, let's break the classes down. Class 1, Security Class. To begin, let's start with the most cliché hero of the bunch, the Park Military Officer. This character is in his or her early 30s, and was tasked with keeping things orderly and safe for all of the park goers, before rampaging dinosaurs broke out and caused chaos anyway. The park only accepts people with a military background for this job, and then gives them their own special training beyond that. As such, this character is well equipped to deal with most major threats, both in respect to training and actual equipment they have on hand. They're capable of using any weapon they can get their hands on, and do more damage with weapons than the others do. They also have the biggest inventory out of everyone. Their normal walking speed, however, is the slowest out of every one of the characters, thanks to the large amount of equipment they carry, with their sprinting speed being rather middling. They're also terrible at stealth, though they have basic medical training in case something goes wrong. Class 2, Civilian Class. This character is in his or her mid-20s and has extensive medical training thanks to having been in medical school since they graduated from high school. This character is old enough to be trusted with firearms, but can only wield the lightest and simplest of them. Still, this does give them an advantage if used appropriately. They have an average walking speed, but also have the slowest sprinting speed, having been out of practice for years. Their inventory space is kind of average, thanks to them choosing to bring a small bag to the park for keeping things like their camera and wallet in. They're particularly wary of where dinosaurs may be lurking, though, leading to them being an invaluable alarm for the rest of the group. Class 3, Swift Class. This character is a teenager of about 16. He or she has the highest sprinting speed and an above-average pace normally. Being so young, this character is unable to use any firearms, though they can use melee weapons as well as throwing weapons like rocks. They're the best at distracting enemies, as well as evading attacks, and while their inventory is the smallest, they're capable of finding useful items much more efficiently than the others. Their medical training is practically non-existent, though they did learn a few things in health class. Class 4, Stealth Class. This character is a small kid around the age of 10. This kid has no weaponry options outside of throwable items. However, they're so small and can be so quiet that they're practically a master of stealth. They can also move through spaces too small for other characters, on top of being able to easily see traps without setting them off. They're pretty light on their feet, though their small size means that they have a rather low sprinting speed. This character also has the second biggest inventory, however, since they brought a backpack to the park with them. One other unique aspect to this class and the Swift class is that they can directly interact with each other to reach new areas. The Swift class can do things like hoist the Stealth class up into areas nobody else can reach. Now that we've got the characters down, let's talk about the actual gameplay. The goal of the game is to complete a set of objectives for each of the 4 characters in your party. They each have their own goals that need to be accomplished before they're okay escaping the island. You can only have one character from each of the 4 classes in your party, but you can select from a handful of objectives unique to your current class before the game starts. So maybe one round, where you end up playing as the security class, you decide that he or she has been told by their superiors to head to the hospital to grab a certain amount of medical supplies to help at the evacuation site. Then maybe next time you play as that class, you're tasked with putting down a specific dinosaur that's of particular threat to everyone. With each player picking their own objectives, they effectively write their own stories through how their goals play off of each other. This could also be accomplished by randomizing the objectives from the same set list. Either way works. As far as gameplay goes, this is no Call of Duty. While large firefights can break out, they're a rather special occurrence that may only happen once or twice across a campaign. Campaigns themselves will likely last no more than 2 hours, ensuring that it could be done in a single sitting. Think of it like the stories in the Left 4 Dead games, but much less linear or scripted, and about twice the length on average. Gameplay straddles the line between exploration, stealth, and combat. There are a few human enemies on the island as well, since the incident in this story was caused by a small group of mercenaries working under an activist group. They're likely to attack on sight since one of the players is going to be part of park security, and you can uncover their goals and motivations as you explore. Now, the dinosaurs. Larger dinosaurs will be more or less common depending on where you are on the island. Some will be violent, some won't. It's up to you to try and avoid conflict if you can, because while being careful is by no means a requirement to survive, your odds of survival go up exponentially if you're careful. There'll be dinosaurs you can hide from, others you can't, some you can run away from, others you can't, and they each have their own specific areas of the island they mostly stick to. On top of this, the game would sport randomly generated, genetically modified hybrid dinosaurs like you can find in Jurassic World. These dinosaurs have special abilities, and each look different. They can be hybridizations of 2 or more of any of the dinosaurs already on the island, meaning you might get a speedy raptor that also has a club on its tail or something. While there can be multiple types of these hybrid dinosaurs in a single game, there is only a limited amount of any one specific type in each game. You may run into a small pack of club-tailed raptors, and then later a pterodactyl that spits acid, but you won't run into 10 more packs of club-tailed raptors or acid-spitting pterodactyls after that. Think of them more like bosses that you may or may not run across. The final aspect of the game could be a form of asymmetrical versus play. The way to balance this would be incredibly complex, so I'll just throw the basic idea out here for everyone to think about. Again, like Left 4 Dead, there could be players who get to play as the dinosaurs trying to kill the humans. The difficult part about this is that you definitely don't want the dinosaur players to constantly be bugging the normal players. They'll effectively never be able to win the game if they have to deal with more and more human-controlled dinosaurs every few minutes. This is much more of a survival game than a shooter, remember. So the dinosaurs would have to have some severe limitations, like the inability to check where they are on the map or something. This would mean that they'd have to find human players simply by searching, or maybe make some sort of minigame out of it. But at the same time, they'd also have to have something interesting and productive to do while they're searching. It would certainly suck to be doing nothing but running through the jungle for an hour and a half looking for players to interact with. But again, you don't want to make player-dinosaur interactions so common that it just becomes a shooter. The other option is a sort of RTS-style commander game, where this opposing player is instead tasked with giving orders to a group of the mercenary activists. They cannot control any of them directly, but instead direct these mercenaries like you would your troops in an RTS. This could include exploration of their own, which could level up their troops and give them better equipment. But they themselves would also have to be required to actually search for the players they're playing against. Otherwise, again, it would turn into a Call of Duty, with the protagonists constantly being harassed by mercenaries. Regardless, I think the ideas for versus play like that could work. I'm just not sure how to balance it well. It's a logistical nightmare, to be sure. In the end, Jurassic Island seems to me like a very doable game in today's climate, and it seems like the logical way to create a game set in this fiction. If designed well, I feel it hits all of the major notes of this universe it's representing, while providing a great co-op experience with tons of replay value. Anyway, tell me what you guys think about this idea, what you might add or change, whatever. And also let me know if you like this sort of video. I've got an endless amount of ideas for games that could be shared here every once in a while, if that's the sort of thing that interests people. Have a great week!